All right, so get this. We're diving into feral children today.
Feral children.
Yeah, you know, those kids raised by animals.
Oh, wow.
It's a crazy topic, right? We've got this lecture all about it, and it was originally in Chinese.
Interesting.
It breaks down all these cases. There are over 100 documented cases throughout history.
Really?
Yeah, over 100. It makes you wonder, what does it even mean to be human if you don't grow up in a human society? I mean...
That's a great question, and that's exactly what this lecture dives into.
Right.
The most famous case, the one that really got people thinking, is Victor of Aveyron.
Victor's story is wild.
It is.
Okay, so picture this: France in 1797, rumors are spreading about this monster in the woods.
A monster?
Yeah, monster. Turns out it was this young boy, maybe 10 years old, living in the wild.
Wow.
They finally catch him in 1800.
So he's running around for a few years?
Yeah, like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
They catch him stealing food from a house.
Makes sense.
Can you imagine this boy? Couldn't walk on 2 legs, couldn't speak a word, completely feral.
That's incredible.
Parisian high society was obsessed. They thought they could civilize him, you know, teach him to be human again, and then hear his incredible story.
Yeah, what happened to him? How did he end up like that?
Right. But it didn't exactly work out that way. 2 really important doctors come into the picture: Dr. Philippe Pinel and Dr. Jean Itard.
Okay, I know Itard.
Yeah.
He did a lot of work with...
With people who had different abilities.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Pinel thought Victor's condition was like a mental illness he was born with, but Itard disagreed. He thought it was all because of his environment, you know, how he was raised.
Interesting.
So Itard actually adopts Victor, gives him his name, and dedicates himself to rehabilitating him.
Wow, what a project.
I know, right? And Itard's work was super detailed. He kept these meticulous records of everything.
He was ahead of his time in a way.
Totally. And there were some really hopeful signs early on. After only 3 months, Victor's senses of touch, taste, and smell were back to normal.
That's amazing.
It really is. It means those senses weren't damaged from birth.
So they were like dormant or something.
Yeah, it's like they just needed to be reawakened.
Fascinating.
But his vision and hearing never really improved.
Oh.
Yeah, which led Itard to think maybe those senses are kind of set very early in life.
That makes you think about nature versus nurture, right? Like what's predetermined and what's shaped by experience.
Exactly, and this gets us to a key idea. The lecture explores the critical period hypothesis.
I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah, I think it suggests that there's a window of time, like maybe up to age 5.
Yeah.
Where humans can naturally learn language.
You got it.
If you miss that window, you might never fully grasp it.
Right. It's like a crucial period for brain development.
Yeah. It's fascinating, but it also makes you wonder, how did language even begin in the first place?
It's a chicken and egg situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, which came first? The ability to speak or the need to communicate?
Exactly.
Science hasn't really figured that out yet.
It's one of those big mysteries.
It is, but the lecture actually turns to a theological perspective from the Bible. Yeah. The Gospel of John states, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." It's a pretty deep statement suggesting that language equals wisdom.
Right.
Like it's this divine gift that separates us from animals.
I can see that.
I mean, think about it. Language lets us do so much: communicate, learn, pass down knowledge through writing. It's the foundation of human society.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another big theme from the Bible, the Tower of Babel.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard that one?
I have.
Okay, so it's like humanity is all united by a single language, and they decide to build this massive tower to reach heaven.
Like they're trying to challenge God.
Exactly. It's like, hey, God, move over. We got this.
That's some serious hubris.
Total hubris, right. And God's not too happy about it, understandably.
I can imagine.
So what does he do? He confuses their language,
Right.
scatters them across the earth, and creates a multitude of different languages.
That's a classic story.
It is, and the lecture takes this really interesting angle on it.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
It argues that the tower isn't just about actually building something with bricks, you know?
I see.
It's about humanity's drive to create man-made things that replace what God made.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, like we're always trying to improve on nature or even replace it with something artificial.
Exactly. And the speaker even draws a distinction between like brick and bitumen, which are human creations,
Right.
and stone and gypsum, which are natural, you know, given by God.
Interesting distinction.
It is, right. And it all ties back to our original question: what makes us human?
Yeah, is it our creativity, our ability to shape the world?
Exactly. It's a really provocative question, and it gets even more interesting when the lecture introduces Nimrod.
Nimrod.
Yeah, he was the leader who pushed for the Tower of Babel.
Oh, right. I remember him.
And his name literally means rebellion in Hebrew.
Really?
Yeah, rebellion.
Wow, so it's like built into his name.
Right, like it's his destiny to challenge the established order.
Okay, now hold on tight because this is where things get a little bit strange.
Okay, tell me more.
So the lecture connects Nimrod to the Rothschild family.
The Rothschilds.
Yeah, the powerful banking dynasty.
Okay.
The speaker claims that they're descendants of Nimrod,
Oh, wow.
and they use his name in some of their businesses as proof.
Really?
Yeah, it's a bit out there, I know.
That is interesting.
And then it gets even wilder. They link the Rothschilds to the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
Yeah, that supposed secret society aiming for a new world order.
Oh, wow.
Another act of rebellion against God's way, right?
Right.
And then get this. They bring in the EU Parliament building
What about it?
as a modern-day Tower of Babel.
Really?
Yeah, symbolizing this ongoing human ambition to reach for something beyond our grasp.
It's a lot to process.
It is, right?
It makes you think about the word Babel itself.
What about it?
In Akkadian, the language of the ancient Sumerians, it means gate of God. But in Hebrew, the word Baal means confusion.
That's interesting. Two very different meanings.
Right. So is the Tower of Babel a literal event?
Or a symbol of human progress and its potential downsides.
Right. Is it history or prophecy?
Or both, maybe.
These give me chills.
This lecture's really making me think.
Me too. It's fascinating stuff. Let's unpack it all a bit further.
Yeah, let's dive back in and see where this rabbit hole leads us.
Please.
It's wild, right? We've got feral children, the Tower of Babel, secret societies, and the question of what it means to be human.
It's like this big puzzle.
Yeah, it is.
And the lecture is using all these different pieces like history and science and the Bible to kind of paint a picture.
And it's a picture that might make us a little uncomfortable.
It's like, are we so busy building our own towers, literally and figuratively, that we've forgotten what it means to be human?
You know, connecting with each other, with nature, with something bigger than ourselves.
It really makes you think.
It does. And think about Victor again for a minute.
Okay.
Even though Dr. Icard tried so hard, he never really fit into human society.
Right. He was kind of stuck between two worlds.
Exactly. He was still a creature of the wild in a lot of ways.
And, you know, the lecture seems to draw a parallel there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like maybe all our fancy technology is leading us down a similar path.
A path to isolation.
Yeah, like we're trading connection for progress.
Progress without purpose.
Right. And that can be dangerous.
Definitely can lead to arrogance, to isolation, to a loss of our shared humanity.
So what are we supposed to do? Ditch all our tech and go live in the woods like Victor?
I don't think that's the answer.
Okay, good.
It's not about rejecting progress.
Right.
It's about approaching it with wisdom and humility.
So instead of building towers to reach heaven, maybe we should be building bridges to reconnect with what we've lost.
Bridges to each other, to nature, to that spark of the divine that's within us all.
I like that.
It's about finding a balance. Remember, even in the Bible, there are examples of human creation that are good.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like Noah's Ark.
Oh, right.
It wasn't the building itself that was bad in the Tower of Babel story. It was the motivation behind it.
Right. The arrogance, the desire to replace God's creation with something man-made.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about our own intentions when it comes to technology.
Are we creating to serve humanity or to control it?
That's a big question.
It is, and it's one we all need to think about, especially with all the rapid changes happening in the world.
Speaking of rapid change, remember that prediction about the singularity?
In 2045.
Yeah, when AI is supposed to become smarter than humans.
Right, like a superintelligence.
Yeah. And if that's our modern-day Tower of Babel, what can we do to make sure it doesn't all come crashing down?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, right. Does the lecture offer any solutions?
Well, it doesn't give us a step-by-step guide.
Okay.
But it does offer a way of thinking about the challenges we're facing.
How so?
It encourages us to cultivate wisdom, to seek connection, to really embrace what it means to be human, even as we push the boundaries of what's possible.
So we're walking this tightrope between progress and preservation, innovation and reverence.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, but a necessary one.
If we want a future where technology serves humanity.
And not the other way around.
Right, because the last thing we need is for our own creations to turn against us.
And you know, one of the biggest lessons we can take from the feral children is the importance of connection.
Really?
Think about it. Even isolated from human society, they found connection in nature in their relationships with animals.
That's true. They had to adapt to survive.
Exactly. And maybe it's a reminder for us all to nurture those connections in our own lives.
To find solace and wisdom in the natural world.
and to remember that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
And what about that question of language being a defining characteristic of humanity?
The critical period hypothesis suggests that there's a window for language acquisition.
Right, like you have to learn it early on.
But Victor's story and the stories of other feral children show us that even without conventional language, connection is still possible.
So maybe there's a deeper kind of language.
A language of empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
One that goes beyond words.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the key to bridging the divides and creating a future where both humanity and technology can thrive.
That's a beautiful thought.
And I think it speaks to the idea that this deep dive isn't about finding all the answers.
It's more about asking the right question.
Exactly. It's about sparking a conversation, encouraging us to think critically about the world and our place in it.
And to be open to those moments of wonder and awe.
Remind us of who we truly are.
Even in a world that's so dominated by technology.
So as we approach this potential turning point in 2045, what can we do to ensure a positive outcome? The lecture highlights a few key things.
Yeah, I was taking notes on that too. What really stood out to me was the emphasis on, I was taking notes on that too. What really stood out to me was the emphasis on cultivating wisdom and seeking connection.
Right. It's not just about what we can do with technology.
Yeah, it's about what we should do.
Exactly. We have to think about the consequences.
And it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about progress and innovation.
But we can't forget the importance of our relationships.
With each other, with nature, with something bigger than ourselves.
It's about remembering that we're part of a larger web of life.
Yeah, and the lecture uses that Tower of Babel story to warn us about the dangers of unchecked ambition.
Letting our ego get the best of us.
Right, thinking we can do it all on our own.
But there's a glimmer of hope in that story, too.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, remember how the people building the tower were all united?
By a single language.
Exactly. And the lecture suggests that this unity, this shared purpose,
could be our saving grace.
It could be.
So instead of being divided by our differences,
we need to find ways to come together.
And use our collective wisdom to guide our technological development.
It's like flipping the script on the Tower of Babel story.
Turning a tale of division into a call for unity.
Exactly. We need to recognize that we're all in this together.
And maybe those feral children can offer us a clue.
Oh, yeah? How so?
Well, think about it. These kids were raised outside of human society.
Right. They had to learn to survive on their own.
And they developed this deep connection with the natural world.
They learned to communicate with animals to adapt to their environment.
It's like they found a different kind of language.
A language of instinct and intuition.
Maybe we need to relearn that language.
Tap into that primal wisdom that's still within us.
It could be the key to finding a balance between our technological advancements
and our connection to the natural world.
I like that.
What if, instead of fearing the singularity,
that moment when AI surpasses human intelligence,
we see it as an opportunity to reconnect with our own potential?
Our intuitive and creative potential.
Exactly. What if we can learn to collaborate with AI?
Harness its power while still holding on to our own humanity.
Man with machine, not man versus machine.
That's a pretty optimistic outlook.
It is.
And I like it, but it's also kind of scary, right?
The unknown is always a bit unsettling.
What if this collaboration doesn't work out?
What if we lose ourselves in the process?
It's a valid concern.
It is, but I think the lecture is encouraging us to embrace the unknown.
To face the future with courage and curiosity.
And remember, the story of the Tower of Babel isn't necessarily a tragedy.
It's more about redirection, a course correction.
Right, maybe the scattering of people and the emergence of different languages.
It wasn't a punishment, but a catalyst for diversity and growth.
Exactly. And maybe the singularity will be a similar catalyst.
Pushing us to evolve, to adapt, to rediscover what it means to be human.
In a world that's constantly changing.
This has been quite a deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground.
From feral children to the Tower of Babel to the singularity.
And somehow it all seems connected. It's amazing how these different ideas can weave together.
To create a richer understanding of the world.
And I think that's the beauty of this lecture.
It challenges us to think critically, to connect the dots.
To see the world in new and unexpected ways.
It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about.
It does.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I hope they come away with a sense of hope.
Hope.
Yes. The challenges are great. The future is uncertain.
But we have the power to shape our destiny.
We do.
We have the wisdom, the creativity, the compassion to navigate these uncharted waters.
And create a future where both humanity and technology can flourish.
That's beautifully said.
And maybe, just maybe, those feral children can serve as a guide.
A reminder of the resilience of the human spirit
Our capacity for connection.
and the importance of finding balance in a world dominated by our own creations.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, folks.
It's been quite a ride.
It certainly has, and as we continue to explore, to question, to create.
May we never lose sight of what truly makes us human.